The idea that God might need the devil more than we do sounds blasphemous at first, almost impossible to even entertain. Traditional religion separates the two with a clean, unquestionable line. God is absolute goodness, and the devil is absolute evil. Yet when we look deeper into humanity's oldest stories, scriptures, and mythological patterns, this separation becomes far less rigid than we were taught. The figure of the adversary is rarely just a villain. He is a tester, a challenger, a catalyst. In many ancient texts, the devil's presence gives meaning to the divine order rather than destroying it. Pure light without shadow reveals nothing. A universe without opposition becomes flat, stagnant, and meaningless. Perhaps the devil does not threaten God, perhaps he completes him. Some theologians quietly suggest that God did not allow the devil to exist out of punishment, but out of necessity. Free will cannot function in a world where only one path exists. Choice requires tension. Morality requires the possibility of failure. Growth requires resistance. If God desires beings who can freely choose devotion, then a force that represents the alternative must exist. Strangely, this places the devil not outside the divine plan, but buried inside it. He becomes the dark mirror through which light defines itself, a contrast that allows humans to see the edges of goodness more sharply. Without him, the entire architecture of moral decision-making collapses. In this sense, God may rely on the devil far more than humanity ever did. From a metaphysical perspective, the devil functions as the universe's principle of negation, the cosmic no that gives meaning to God's eternal yes. Without negation, affirmation cannot be understood. Without rebellion, obedience becomes meaningless. Without darkness, light loses all value. Every dualistic system in philosophy, from Zoroastrianism to Taoism, recognizes this tension as a foundational law. Even in physics, particles exist with antiparticles, creation relies on friction, death feeds life, and entropy shapes the structure of time. If God is the architect of existence, then he must have known that a universe built purely on submission would be hollow. A world without resistance cannot evolve. In that sense, the devil is less an enemy and more an indispensable part of the cosmic engine. Seen this way, the devil becomes the first teacher, not of evil, but of perspective. He shows the boundary that God draws. He exposes what humans truly desire. He reveals the weakness of belief, the strength of doubt, and the depth of human contradiction. When the devil whispers, he does not create temptation. He only exposes what was already inside the human heart. This role is uncomfortable, even offensive to religious tradition, because it implies that the devil participates in a divine educational system rather than waging a war against it. He becomes the abrasive force shaping the soul, the pressure that forces transformation. If God is the sculptor, the devil is the chisel. Some mystics even suggest that the devil represents a dimension of divinity that God cannot express directly. In their view, God is too perfect, too absolute, too unchanging to embody rebellion, chaos, curiosity, or the hunger for individuality. These qualities must emerge somewhere, or the universe becomes a rigid, lifeless machine. Thus, the devil becomes the vessel through which contrast enters creation. Not as a rival, but as the shadow of divine potential, the part of God that breaks the rules so creation can grow. This interpretation is radical, but not new. Gnostic texts, Kabbalistic commentaries, and even early Christian mystics quietly hinted that the adversary is not an independent power, but a necessary consequence of divine fullness. Without an adversary, God would generate obedience, not consciousness. And consciousness, for better or worse, requires the ability to reject its creator. From a psychological standpoint, the devil is the projection of everything humans cannot face within themselves. Every forbidden desire, every impulse toward freedom, every thought that breaks from obedience is externalized onto a supernatural figure. This outsourcing protects the human ego from confronting its own complexity. But if humans need the devil as a mirror, imagine how crucial that mirror becomes in a cosmic sense. A God who creates self-aware beings must also create the conditions for them to confront their shadow. Otherwise, they would remain spiritually infantile. The devil becomes the architect of maturity, the door through which humans confront their moral autonomy. In this framework, God needs the devil because humans need the test, and without the test, the soul cannot evolve. Mythology supports this idea in its own symbolic language. In nearly every ancient culture, the bringer of knowledge is punished. Prometheus is chained, Enki is feared, the serpent is demonized. Figures who expand human awareness are cast as villains, yet civilization is built upon their gifts. This paradox is not an accident, it is a pattern. The enemy of the gods is often the one who accelerates human growth. If God desires worship, the devil is a threat. But if God desires awakening, the devil is a necessity. Only through resistance do humans discover their own divine spark. Only through challenge do they distinguish inherited belief from chosen faith. The devil's presence forces humans to define themselves, not through obedience, but through understanding. And a God who values understanding more than blind loyalty would need such an adversary to complete the spiritual ecosystem. So perhaps the real question is not whether God needs the devil more than we do, but why he would choose to need him at all. The answer may be that creation is not a battlefield, but a dialogue. Light and shadow act not as enemies, but as complementary forces shaping the soul's journey. In this cosmic tension, God provides structure, and the devil provides contrast. God offers the path, the devil reveals the alternatives. God represents unity, the devil represents individuality. In this dynamic, humanity is not the object of a war, but the subject of an experiment, to see whether conscious beings will choose meaning on their own. And if this is true, then the devil is not the destroyer of God's plan, he is the fire that tempers it. The question that remains is whether humanity can see beyond fear long enough to understand the deeper architecture behind this ancient relationship.